So, todavía tenemos que tener como más tiempo para darles a esos científicos, para darles más tiempo para hacer pruebas y hacer más cosas así. So, nada más le voy a enseñar las importantes partes de LK-99 y cosas como de futuro, como podemos hacer como un UFOS y cosas locas así. Pues bueno, le vamos a seguir con el video y
Let's start with what we know. A team of researchers from South Korea claim they have achieved a superconductor material codenamed LK-99 at room temperature and atmospheric pressure. Superconductivity was first discovered by Dutch physicist Heike Kamerlijn Onnes back in 1911. Like ferromagnetism and atomic spectral lines, superconductivity is a phenomenon which can only be explained by quantum mechanics. Now that is a key factor in this story. It kind of ties it all together, and we'll get back to that multiple times throughout this story. The key requirements to be classified as a superconductor are the following. 1, the electrical resistance vanishes, and 2, magnetic flux fields are expelled from within the material. Don't worry, we're going to explain both principles, Doctor. If you want to
el material del mundo que nosotros usamos es nada comparado con el material de LK-99.
One of the easiest ways to understand resistance is by thinking about an airplane flying through the air. A bad conductor, like our nichrome in our toaster, is like slapping on engines on a big refrigerator. Yes, it'll fly, but you'll be wasting a ton of energy to move it around. And then copper would be like a Boeing 787 Dreamliner with a blunt nose and tapered tail to absolutely minimize drag. This would require much less energy. And then our superconductor would be like that same Boeing 787 climbing out of the atmosphere and into outer space where there is no air molecules at all. Sure, I understand there would be no oxygen for the ingestion for the engines and there'd be no molecules for the lift over the wings. But if you think about it that way, that 787 would just fly at that speed indefinitely because there would be no losses. And that's kind of what's happening with a superconductor. We'll talk more about the benefits in just a bit. But first, let's talk a little bit about the drama and controversy surrounding this. The greater the skepticism you need to approach it with. But there's added skepticism through no fault of
porque
their own.
este hombre aquí fabricó evidencia y fabricó papeles en 2020 sobre el mismo descubrimiento de él. Pero el descubrimiento de él es totalmente diferente y por eso hay mucha controversia de ese.
Only be shared among 3 people. The emergence of 2 papers and the mad dash to make sure people are getting credit is actually a good sign that there might actually be something to this claim. So here is a list of the 3 authors on the first paper and the 6 authors on the second. It'll be really interesting how all the credits and stuff work out and whose names get attributed to the Nobel Prize if that's on the horizon. Now let's talk a little bit about the timeline of how we reached this breakthrough. Suk-bae Lee met Ji-hoon Kim in 1996 and got their first taste of superconducting materials in 1999.
So
Lee finishes his PhD in 2004 and sets up Q Center, which works on quantum computing and has direct ties to superconductors. There's the first tie to quantum computers. By 2017, they were getting close to having something and started raising money. In 2018, Young-Won Kwon, a physics professor, comes on board part-time as their CTO. In 2019, they confirmed that they have a room temperature superconductor working and filed for Korean patents for production of low-resistance ceramic compound. In 2020, COVID happens, and they go heads down and finally isolate the superconductor, obtain its crystal composition, and analyze the characteristics. They make a submission to Nature and get rejected because of the Ranga-Diaz controversy. It's kind of a tough time to publish papers. They were asked to publish locally and get it peer-reviewed. To help with credibility on the world stage, they bring on Hyun-Tak Kim, research professor of physics at William & Mary, to help and further test and validate their claims. In March 2023, they filed for their international patent application. And of course, in July, they published the papers that we're here talking about. Okay, now let's look at how LK-99 works. This is going to get a little bit technical. Superconductivity. In a normal conductor, free electrons within a material move around in a crystal structure and bounce off atoms and ions along the way. This creates resistance that makes them lose part of their energy, which is dissipated as heat and absorbed in the larger lattice. This is why resistivity is very closely tied to temperature, because the higher the temperature, the more ion motion there is, and the more collisions and losses there are. And this is why normally superconductors have to be cooled to near absolute zero. But in a superconductor, this doesn't happen. The conventional explanation is the Bardeen-Cooper-Schrieffer theory, or BCS theory, from 1957. one. This theory explains that superconductivity is caused by the formation of Cooper pairs, which are pairs of electrons with opposite spins that are loosely bound together by a weak attractive force. Cooper pairs are different from normal electrons in that they can condense into a coherent wave of superconducting electrons. These pairs flow through the material as one, instead of moving as multiple free electrons. It's like someone guiding a group of people with a thin rope through a dark forest, as opposed to blindfolding everyone, putting them in the middle of the forest, and hoping they...
So, esos electrones se forman como en una sola línea y no se pierden energía yéndose así. No, se forman solo línea y se van. Así es, por eso digo, como si se fueran teleportando de un lado al otro lado.
Running into trees. But LK-99 is like teleporting from one side of the forest to the other. The problem with Cooper pairs, so you need very low temperatures for conventional superconductors to work. But LK-99 doesn't rely on weak Cooper pairs. It relies on a new form of superconduction coined superconducting quantum wells, which enables it to work 400.
La mera verdad, sí sé un poco, pero no sé la ciencia que está hablando de eso. Si tú quieres ver el video, se llama LK-99 superconductor, el youtuber se llama 2-bit Vinci.
The Meissner effect is explained by the formation of little loops of electric current called screening currents on the surface of the superconductor. These currents are like electromagnets that generate a magnetic field that exactly cancel out the external magnetic field, so it levitates. This principle is what makes superconductors attractive for high-speed maglev trains. So at this point, you've got to be wondering, what's the catch? Rare materials, complex processes, toxic chemicals? No. This superconductor is actually pretty easy and cheap to make. All you need is lead oxide, lead sulfate, copper powder, and phosphorus. The entire synthesis is a 3-step solid-state process where you put the ingredients inside a sealed quartz tube and cook it in a lab oven at less than 1,000 degrees Celsius for about 4 days.
¿Y por qué es tan barato? Es por eso que yo digo, y él dice también que es tan revolucionario.
And it's done. Once you get this ugly-looking rock, you can use it as is, or you can make thin films with it using thermal vapor deposition. This is standard technology in industries like electronics, optics, and aerospace. This is seriously game-changing technology, but there are many questions that are still unanswered. Is there a way to combination? Experimental evidence points to a lifetime of at least 100,000 years.
Aquí lo que está hablando es sobre baterías usando superconductores. Si esas baterías sirven, esos pueden superconducir por ese tamaño de tiempo.
So might we be on the brink of a whole new industry of room temperature superconductor batteries? That's a video all by itself for another day.
Por eso yo digo que hay muchos elementos y LK-99 si es de verdad, por eso es lo que no te van a decir. Eso es lo que no te van a decir, que hay este elemento que si es de verdad puede revolucionar todo el futuro, toda la tecnología, todo. Y ahorita, de lo que yo sepa, hay científicos que dicen que no pueden replicar. Dicen que LK-99 no es un superconductor, pero también hay otros científicos diciendo que sí replicaron. Pues yo nomás miré un video diciendo de una persona diciendo que sí lo replicó, pero todavía hay mucha controversia en todo eso, pero hay mucha controversia en todo eso porque es tan importante, tan revolucionario, y es lo que no te van a decir y lo que no te dicen. Muchas gracias por ver y hasta luego.